Everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in a Zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and I'm so thrilled to be bringing you today's garden tour because we have so much going on in the garden right now. The fall colors are really starting to happen. Wow, just look at the sedum right here. It's so bright. The colors are vibrant. Sedum Autumn Joy is such a staple of the fall garden for color. It also provides so much good interest in the wintertime. And just look at it in contrast with that beautiful, incredible hydrangea. We recently got some rain here, which I was so grateful for because it had gotten really dry and windy again. We got a lot of heavy rain and we got quite a bit of wind, but not too bad in terms of any damage in the garden. Look at this beautiful aster over here. It's really coming into full effect, and I just love the way that it's creeping through the incredible hydrangea. Isn't that gorgeous? We had some additional blooms on the azure snow um, salvias right here and the crystal blue, but they just finished before the video, so unfortunately don't get to see those blooming today, but simply beautiful. This butterfly bush still has a few blooms on it. It's still putting out some beautiful new silvery growth, but I think the blooms are going to be fewer and further between as the weather has cooled off quite significantly. In fact, this morning it was 39 degrees when we woke up. Quite a difference in temperature in just a day. It was like the storm came through with the wind and the rain, and everything just got much more vibrant again, but it definitely feels like fall. And so this is the first fall video. It's the first true fall video. And it's definitely looking a little bit like fall here. You can see just a little bit of color starting to show up on some of these leaves on the azalea. And the beautiful blooms on the hydrangea, the vanilla strawberry, are just mingling so nicely with the beautiful Japanese maple here. Right along with that sedum. And we have some mums here that are starting to bloom in front. Look at those beautiful white white mums. And these white mums start out like a creamy yellow and then turn a much more intense bright white, and it's just gorgeous. And this canna is so beautiful. You guys, this is the only one that I was able to save out of the whole group that I bought in the bag from Longfield Gardens. It was at Costco, and unfortunately all of the, are they rhizomes? I think they're rhizomes for cannas. They were basically rotted, but I was able to get a little bit of growth on one, and after a couple of months, this is what I've gotten. So I'm really going to try to save these because, gosh, these would make such a beautiful statement on either end of the pool in the concrete planters, wouldn't they? I mean, the linear yellow stripes and the white on there, just gorgeous. There's some beautiful sedum creeping along at the bottom. And I planted up these containers a little bit. I had some 50-cent sun patiens, which I primarily bought for the foliage because they have a little bit of a red tinge to them. And then I popped a heuchera in there that I had in the ground, and just some of that burgundy glow ajuga. I think that looks kind of nice. And I did a similar look on the other side as well. Nothing real fancy, but you know, as I'm recovering from COVID, I'm really having to take more time to just rest and assess my garden than being able to work in it. But I am hoping to be able to do a planting video soon. That's my next goal, to do a little planting, a little moving things around. Look at this all the rage rose. Oof, I love the color on this. It's just like an amazing sunset, isn't it? Truly, truly beautiful, and so many buds just still getting ready to open on it. And you all know I really don't do much to my plants. I fertilize them once in spring, and that's usually about the gist of it. Sometimes I give roses a little bit more fertilization, like maybe a second time, but it's very rare. Only if I don't feel like they're performing. This clematis is looking horrible right now. It really just looks awful, but it's putting out some new growth since we got that nice fresh rain and it cooled down the temperatures. But this berry white hydrangea is simply gorgeous. Look at the deep color on that. And then the one white bloom with the newly changing colors on it. So pretty. And back behind there we have the raspberry bush. This one is a fall bearing raspberry bush, and I think I see a raspberry that I want to pick. Yep, there's one right there. Nice golden rose raspberry. Yum. Get some vitamins. Things are looking nice over here. In this corner though, the sedum has definitely flopped over. It just got so dry and it was really tall and it just flopped. Now I love how this heuchera has filled in, and I plan to hopefully continue to just kind of fill in some of the additional ground in here with it, because it does really well even though this area is extremely dry, because the arborvitae does take a lot of the water from the soil. And this strawberry Sunday hydrangea is just starting to turn. So I want your input on this hydrangea here. This is the quick fire hydrangea that I had that sprouted what looks like could be a standard. I'm thinking about taking a chance next spring and cutting the standard at the base and sticking it in the soil to see if I can get it to grow as a tree form. It's a very thick branch. I've never tried one that thick, but should I go for it? Would you guys like to see that? If I get enough people wanting to see it, it will be worth it, even if I lose it, just to give it a try. And we're starting to get some magnificent color from my orange mums. These chrysanthemums, oh my gosh, did you just see that hummingbird? Did you see it? It came into view really, really quick. I think it might have been in the camera. Oh, okay, super distraction. I get excited when they buzz through. This is a chrysanthemum that is hardy here. It's zone 5. And they get really, really big. Now, they say to pinch these back until around July 4th, and I do definitely trim them back. But even with trimming them back, I'm just going to pan down here. You can see how big of an impact they have. And I like to refer to them as my gigantimums because they just really take off once we get to this time of year. But they're bringing that really beautiful pop of color, and just look at them next to that salvia. That's the rose marvel salvia. Such a pretty contrast. We have a little bit of bloom going on this pristine blue penstemon. This has definitely been a good performer. It was a very small plant when I got it, and it has bloomed I think 3 times. So I'm really excited to see how it will perform after having some more time in the ground. So next year I'm going to be having my eye on that one. Look at this. Isn't this pretty? This is a really nice little vignette right here with the arborvitaes and the beautiful shrub rose in the back. That was supposed to be a Grace and Grit pink shrub rose, or a bicolor one, but it turned out to be a red one. And I actually think it's kind of pretty. I mean, it is really pretty. I wouldn't have bought it if I knew it was red, but it turned out all right. It's a pretty significant contrast to some of the things in the other areas. Just look at the colors here, right? All of the contrast. It's so important to have contrast in the garden because it really just wakes your eyes up. And it can be very peaceful and restful at the same time. It's just a very good sensory experience to see all of the different colors together. Let's look at the mums with the beautiful cappuccino rudbeckia. Oh, you guys, isn't that gorgeous? So pretty. Now this little area, as I told you, I was going to put some of my lungwort as a ground cover in here, and I really love it. So I put the samurai lungwort back here. It's the pulmonaria, and it's very silvery, so it just kind of lights up this area, doesn't it? Now before I had those variegated green and white hostas back there, and they just were not very restful on the eye, and I think it's just so much more peaceful to have that beautiful silver, which kind of just lights up underneath of that viburnum. And the dianthus are still having their second bloom. Another gigantemum right here. A beautiful contrast against the chartreuse, little tiny spirea bush. Now I do have some plans. Some of my plans around moving plants are in this area. So I can't wait to show you. I've had lots of time to sit and rest and think and look and not do anything, so I've made myself a little list. I never make lists about things I'm going to do in the garden. Usually it's all just, I work on it as I go, but my mind just kept going on it, so I had to write it down. Look at the sedum over here. Isn't that beautiful? Now you can see after that rain, I did get that split in this one that I didn't cut back in early June. Whereas this one did perform much better in the heavy rain. Most of it is still quite upright. I do have a little bit of a split in the middle, but I do think overall that it's well worth cutting your sedums back. Again, the wind was also very horrible, so it was just whipping everything around. Even if it was low to the ground, it got whipped around. That climbing rose has gotten so big all of a sudden, but it doesn't show any signs of giving me any additional blooms. This will be its second full winter, so I'm interested to see if it will weather the winter better this year, because maybe it has stronger roots and thicker stems. We'll see. Aren't these sweet daisy birdie daisies so pretty? They just seem to keep on blooming. And the foliage has been really pretty. It hasn't been eaten like some of the other ones. Even my banana cream 2s are kind of, I don't know, have a little bit of pest damage on the leaves, but not these. That firelight is doing really well after I planted it there. And the diamond rose hydrangea, it's looking really pretty. It definitely is going to be better next year. I planted it in the ground last year in the fall, so this is its first full year. And I love it. I think it's gorgeous. I love the blooms on it. I'm trying to be patient with it as it establishes itself this year. And I wanted to just plant it back enough so that it has room to grow up and out, because I don't want it to be right in your face when you're walking by. I want it to be up and grow it as a kind of a small tree form. That's my plan anyways. And next to that we have the limelight hydrangea, which is looking gorgeous. Gorgeous. It definitely struggled a little bit at first because we got so dry after I planted it, I had to keep watering it. And in front we have some of the Midnight Masquerade penstemon. So those were just one small basil root, and it was put in last fall, and it looks like it's multiplied a little bit this year. So next year I expect to see a little bit more impact from those. Because I have 3 of them in the front of the border here. And I also am excited because next year will be the second full year for the daylilies, and they perform pretty well this year. And I'm expecting that next year they're going to do even better because they will continue to multiply underground. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing how this end of the border performs next year. That's the thing about gardening. There's always something to look forward to. And this little lime hydrangea and this beautiful woodland phlox are looking gorgeous. I might divide this woodland phlox and plant it in other places. You don't see it looking this beautiful in the woods because it's not, protected by mulch and in a place maybe where it's getting quite the right nutrients. But it does self-seed itself. Self-seed itself, that's like a double. Anyways, it self-seeds. And it grows, but it really only grows about half that size. And it's not as full and lush. So that is just beautiful. Reminds me a little bit of baby's breath. Over here we have lots of color, as always, just provided by foliage. You just can't go wrong with some really nice foliage plants. Now I do have some foxglove that are in here that I planted this year. So they are from seed and they will hopefully all bloom next year, and I think that will be absolutely stunning. You can see a little bit of changes starting on this Mount Airy Fothergilla. Just a little bit. I think it's only going to get better this week because of how much it has cooled down here in Michigan. I'm just going to take a step back and look down the pathway here because it's a pretty vista. And these April night salvias have bloomed their heads off, and now they're flopping a little bit, so I will need to cut them back. But there's still quite a bit of blooms happening, and the bees are still enjoying them despite the cooler weather. And oh my gosh, it's so pretty with the firelight hydrangea being this short and having the purple and the pink and the white all together. Just a stunning contrast in color, form, and texture. And I love how this bed turned out, you guys, after we planted the catchfly. Isn't this pretty? So we have some little wax begonias over here. And let me get this from the other view so you can see better. Those wax begonias, and then with the boxwood in the middle to provide some evergreen interest. And then we have the catchflies, that's the variegated catchfly. And then we have two of those very cute, I think they're called Pulchella, so, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's a little type of like baby heuchera. It has beautiful little pink flowers. So that's something to look forward to next year. And then I put some of the penstemon. This is the violet dusk penstemon. So all of those foliage colors contrast and provide so much interest without even having blooms on them, that I don't have to worry about it. I mean, when they bloom, it's just like extra spectacular, right? Now that it's cooler and we got some rain, all of the begonias are just so much more perked up and happy. It's amazing. Now, we haven't gotten around to trimming these shrubs right here. But part of that is because, if you can see in the way back, the power companies came through and they took down 3 trees that were along the hillside here. And I hope to kind of wander into the way back and show you that at some point as well, because I've got some things I want to plant back there, and I usually only show it around this time of year because it's the only time of year that I can plant things and have enough natural rainwater to sustain them and make a successful planting. Isn't this beautiful? I love, love, love how staking this weeping spruce kind of changed the effect of it and provided some additional height in the garden. And anything that I can do to add to a little bit more screening of this back fence, I like. We're getting some fresh foliage growing in the autumn frost hostas here. You can see because it's a little bit creamier yellow than white. The Queen of Hearts Brunnera here is looking gorgeous, and the hearts are huge, much bigger than the Jack of Diamonds, at least so far. It might have to do with where it's placed, but that seems to be the big difference in my garden between the two plants. And the little hydrangeas are looking pretty. What I like about them is because they don't turn a super dark pink, and I like to keep that kind of restful tones of green in this garden. I know I have a few phlox and I have a few other bloomers back here, but other than that, I like to keep kind of this part of the garden in the green and lime and silver family, just kind of that zen effect that it can provide and the relaxation. And the little hydrangeas definitely offset that Annabelle hydrangea in the back as well. I would call this container planting with the rhubarb a success. The nasturtiums are starting to seed themselves on the ground underneath the stump. So we'll see how many of those I get in the spring next year. I'm just going to leave it out and see what happens over the winter. I want to show you this planting because the foliage on this dogwood is absolutely gorgeous, and the dahlias over here are beautiful. So you can see just how this is turning this gorgeous red. And the leaves are kind of naturally droopy on dogwoods. That's kind of the way that this type of dogwood is. So it's not that it's like underwatered or anything like that. That's just its growth habit. I'll be planting this one out into the landscape because it will not overwinter well in a pot. We're just too cold for that. And look at these dahlias. Isn't that pretty? Let's see, this one's really big. I think these are called American Dawn. And these were not what I ordered, but turns out these are my favorite. And then my next favorite are these beautiful purple with blue tones. Apparently it's this bee's favorite as well. He's taking a little nap in it. So really pretty. Everything's just super peaceful today after a really windy day yesterday. Could not believe how gusty it was. This pinky winky hydrangea has its color, and you'll see the other one has even more color on it. But I think this one's going to have perhaps bigger blooms next year as it establishes itself in the garden. I just got it last year and planted it to replace a lemony lace elderberry that had verticillium wilt. The Halcona clover is just a showstopper this year. I mean, and I have so much of it. I could divide more of it and put it in other places if I have time. I feel like I'm running out of time. I can hardly believe that it's already going to be October. These butterfly blue pincushion flowers are super pretty, and they just keep putting out blooms. I'm really looking forward to seeing those fill in more next year. So the spot on pulmonaria that I purchased ended up being put over here. I pulled out a green and white hosta from this area, and I thought that they would look really nice, kind of setting off the Pierra shrub that we planted over here. And I hope to continue to spread those in this area around that shrub. So slowly removing the hostas from around it. I think they will perform even better than the hostas have. Now, I have to take you over to the half moon garden because everything's in bloom. We have these pom-pom dahlias, seven sun shrub. We have the lavender chiffon rose of Sharon. We have buds on the rose and the hibiscus. Well, they're finally done blooming, and I think probably by next week we'll start to see some of their fall color. They turn a magnificent like orange and yellow greenish color. They just glow in the sun. And these cardoons finally look amazing. Wish they looked like this all summer, but they didn't. That's all right. It was worth trying. I guess you would need to start out with a bigger specimen in my zone to really get them going. Now I have some great blooms coming up again on the Red Riding Hood penstemon that's back here. It's kind of flopped over because of all of the rain, but I'm quite impressed by this penstemon and its reblooming power. So I'm looking forward to having more of that in the garden next year. I would like to divide it this fall if I have time. I'm not sure that I will. I have so many plans already. But if I do, I am thinking about putting it in some other areas as well, because I have some coneflowers that are underproducing for me. They're like hybrid coneflowers, and I feel like they're just not as strong as, you know, your standard purple coneflowers. I don't know why, but something about the breeding must have made them that way. So what we're going to do here, and it looks like a lot right now. I mean, I think it looks kind of messy in my mind, but my goal is to have that purple rose of Sharon coming up over the rose, because this is as big as the rose will get, but the rose of Sharon will get much taller, and the Tan Shan will be a beautiful small tree form. And then I have the incredible hydrangea right here, so that should kind of grow out and fill up this space right here. And then I divided right here I have Veronica. This is the Wizard of Oz Veronica, which there's 1, 2, 3, 4 plants, which is an odd number, I know, but it's an even number. But I just did that because I wanted to spread it out some more, and hopefully it will just grow into itself and look like one long border plant in front of that incredible. These dahlias got so tall and big they flopped, so I've staked them and have made some nice bouquets out of them. I'm not a super big bouquet person. I love enjoying the flowers out in the yard, but I did make myself some flowers as I've been recovering from COVID. Made me feel a little better. Those privets are starting to look like a hedge. They're starting to come together. This 9-bark is, I love it. I know I say that all the time, but it's such a fantastic addition to the garden. And these hydrangeas over here are really beautiful. The lime color right now is just gorgeous, and I'm just going to be leaving them. I might cut a couple of blooms off like some that are kind of really, really flappy. But I plan to leave some for the winter interest. Some of the rainbow sensation Weigela that are in this bed and in other places are starting to get a bit of a pink tinge on their leaves. I don't know if you can see that very well on camera, but that happens because of the cool temperatures as well. So that's part of their fall color change. So they definitely have 3 seasons of interest between their variegated foliage, the beautiful pink blooms in the spring, and then the autumn color as they change over. And this autumn Jubilee 9 bark will begin putting on some of its fall color soon. I just will reiterate today about the Pinkadot phlox, which their second bloom in the fall is not as much as their first bloom in early summer, but it certainly is welcome, and they are definitely a good performer for me. And I think if you're someone who does fertilize your garden, they will probably perform even better for you. I'm thinking about taking out these Patriot hostas. They are, I don't know, it wasn't a good year for my hostas that are in part sun because it was so dry. If I have hostas that are in full sun or part sun, they definitely need the water. And I know they're so tough and they'll make it through, so I didn't provide them with supplemental water, but that just means that they don't look that great. So we'll see how things go next year. If we have another year like this next year, you know, that's kind of why I'm thinking that they need to go. So this bed looks very different from the last time you've seen it. The pinky winky hydrangeas are super colorful now. Just look at the deep color, and the panicles on these are huge. I mean, they're probably about 12 inches long and maybe about 5 or 6 inches wide at the base. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Love that hydrangea. And then what I did over here that you'll notice such a big difference with is that I ended up cutting back most of the purple cone flowers. I wanted to just give a little bit of light back to those hydrangeas back there and just kind of clean it up a little bit because they were looking kind of scrappy. So I like the way that it looks now. It's a little bit more open and definitely a very different look than otherwise. And we're getting a good color. This one is a sedum that I also had cut back, so you can see how nice and well that weathered the weather. And then over here I planted 3 of the denim and lace sage, and then we're going to come in, we're going to plant some clematis in here because I need some more clematis vines on this trellis. Now this whole season, all I've done to this garden bed to keep it looking good is deadhead the hostas. And then I also came in and I took out a couple of the green and white variegated hostas just to give a little more room to the boxwoods. And I think it makes it look a little cleaner in there, and it gives them more room to breathe to be able to continue to grow in their nice rounded habit. Oh, I did also trim the boxwoods, so I guess that is something else. Over here, my quick fire is doing well. It's adapted, and I think it's going to be really happy in this location, so I'm glad I planted it and thought of that idea. And I'm also still really loving the way that this viburnum over here is growing on. It definitely was underwatered when I bought it, but it's happy in its new home, and as it grows up and spreads, this leaf canopy is going to be fairly dense and should be really nice to provide some cover for that air conditioning unit. We do not have any color yet on our little autumn blaze maple, but that should be coloring up soon. We're going to skip right over the hosta beds today because the battery is running low on my camera and I want you guys to check out the sunbed because we have some more gigantimums out here. Can you see them? Giant orange mums. The bounty of fall, all right there, encapsulated in giant mums. And then around the weeping cherry, we have some beautiful purple mums still. And the veronicas that I planted are doing really well. I did have to come out and water them one more time during the dry spell that we had. But aren't the bobos so pretty with the mums? I mean, the mums are almost taller than the bobos at this point, but they're going to get taller and they're going to spread. And I'm loving how this wabi-sabi wabi-sabi viburnum over here has more space to grow. I'm definitely going to be pulling out these hostas right here and replacing them with something else. They just get too battered by the sun. It's just too much for them in that location. They've just been a filler plant for a while. And they've done their job pretty well. This year was just especially tough on them. So the sedum is looking really pretty this time of year. The beautiful white flowers, and they last for quite a significant amount of time. And they can be a really nice dried flower as well. These hostas also are going to be coming out. I'm talking about this and I'm hoping that I get all of this done this year, but I'm not sure. It just depends on how much energy I have and time. Well, we have a frost here usually in mid-October. The ground doesn't freeze until much later, so I should have at least a good another month of time to get some things planted and to get their roots established in the ground. This is so pretty right now. The only thing that is kind of unsightly is these pink powwow coneflower. Again, these are one of the ones that it's the wildberry or powwow wildberry. I think that's what they're called. They, again, are just a little underwhelming in their performance for me. They may be great for you, but for me, these kind of hybrid types just are not as vigorous, and it could be my clay soil. They may just not really like that. But I love the way the bobo hydrangeas look here, you guys, with the sedum. Isn't that pretty? And then the orange rocket barberry is starting to take on that deep, dark tone. God, I love those bobos. They're so pretty. Just look the color on them. And they're so lace-like in their blooms. Those are just going to be so gorgeous next year too, as they get a little bit fuller and the blooms get a little bit bigger. So exciting. All right, so over here we have more gigantimums. As you come into the driveway, you are greeted by these beautiful orange mounds that almost look like giant pumpkins. Very fall-esque. And one of the things that's really looking good right now is the black scallop ajuga. Look at that black scallop ajuga just growing. So striking. I'm thinking about planting something right here though to kind of help more with the contrast. Now I had some coneflowers in here, but the thing about the coneflowers is they got kind of floppy, and this shrub is going to become much larger, and it's probably going to provide a little bit more shade towards the front of this bed. So I want to pick something that's a better fit for that spot, but I'm not sure what it is right now. I mean, I just used like the salvia and the coneflowers that I had in my yard as placeholders and what I thought would do best in the current lighting situation while I continue to work on the plantings in here. But I really like this garden bed. I think it's turned out really well. I like the colors. It's very different from some of the other areas. And the gars have really taken off since I planted them. They're definitely having quite a bit of that deep maroon foliage, which is very fall-esque also. And I'm almost thinking that to have a little bit more impact with these grasses, that I might end up wanting to move some of this black scallop ajuga and divide some of these grasses eventually and just, create a line of the true blue fescue there. We'll see how that grass does over the winter. You never know here because we do have fairly wet, very cold winters. The weeping cranberry here. The berries are putting on some red color for fall. They're a little orangey, I guess. Very pretty. And then this bed I've just let the coneflowers stand because the goldfinches are definitely still nibbling away at the seeds. We see them out here every single day still. So they're going to be pretty happy with that. But I am still thinking about a little bit more of a change in this area of the garden bed, because now that this crabapple is so big, it's providing a little more shade over this area, and the salvias are not quite as happy as they once were when it was full sun. So I have some ideas about what I'm going to do with that. It'll be a surprise for you guys. And the PG hydrangea standard is really pretty still. I mean, you just can't go wrong with those, right? And we have another gorgeous aster over here, a purple aster. I wish the deer hadn't eaten off the tops of my strawberry Sunday hydrangea because it would be much more beautiful, but it still is quite pretty. And we're going to get a little bit of color on the azaleas over here. They're just starting to kind of put on a little bit of that maroon rusty color. And I'm hoping that next year will be my first year for some blooms on this snowball viburnum. Well, we have successfully made our way through another garden tour, taking a look at some of the new fall color that's going on, and it has been very lovely spending the evening with you guys. I hope you're enjoying some cooler weather where you are, and that you're thinking about what you can do to make some changes in your garden this time of year to prepare it for next year. It's a very exciting time of the year, one of my favorite times of year in the garden. Thanks again for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Bye!